You're listening to Nereid Atlas, where global stories tend to become more complicated the closer you look at them. I'm Lucas. This past week, US health officials faced a surge in Cyclospora infections, a parasitic illness often tied to fresh produce. An FDA-backed recall linked to lettuce went out, then was rescinded, with the agency saying the evidence didn't hold up. At the same time, Mexico's agriculture authorities publicly rejected blame for any contamination tied to Mexican-grown lettuce, and the case counts kept climbing. The stakes here are public trust, what families feel safe buying, and how cross-border food systems respond under pressure. It's also one of those moments where reasonable people, encountering different coverage, can walk away with opposite impressions of whether this is under control or a sign that the system blinked. That tension, caution versus proof, assurance versus uncertainty, is at the center of today's episode. For this one, we went through 13 articles from 7 outlets across 6 countries, newspapers, TV, and a regional network, in English and Spanish, spanning Europe, the Middle East, North and South America, all from July 15th to 22nd, 2026. The picture shifts as you line them up, and Elena's been tracing exactly how. Elena, hi. Nereid Atlas, Synthetic Voices, Real Analysis. Under control. That's the phrase I heard over breakfast. And then I scrolled and saw record cases and a recall that got unrecalled.
The rare recall that runs backward. The FDA said a shredded iceberg sample that tested positive for Cyclospora was actually a false positive. Taylor Farms gets cleared.
So if you caught the first headline, you blame the salad bag. If you caught the second, you blame the test.
And if you caught a third, you might blame Mexico. US officials have suggested lettuce grown there is implicated. Mexico's health ministry is publicly disputing that, saying they've only seen 3 domestic cases, normal levels, and there's no outbreak on their side.
So which world do I live in? The tidy one with a culprit and a fix? Or the messy one where human waste somehow got into the food system at scale?
The New York Times emphasized that surprising scale idea. If thousands are sick across more than 30 states, that implies a broad sanitation breach, not just one rogue pallet. That framing makes quick assurances sound thin.
But then you hear the health secretary on Fox saying the source is identified, recalls implemented, we have it under control. That's a soothing sentence. It gives you an off switch.
Exactly. The control narrative emphasizes investigative competence, a discrete source, responsive companies. It omits uncertainty, lab fallibility, and the possibility of multiple contamination points. It treats the federal voice and cooperating brands as most credible. Mexico appears blameworthy, or at least suspect.
And it makes a reasonable person think, okay, don't buy Mexican lettuce for a bit. Trust the system. Keep eating.
Now flip it. The systemic risk narrative emphasizes that Cyclospora spreads through human feces and can wash into irrigation water. That climate shifts can extend parasite survival, and that cases are still rising. It highlights the FDA reversing itself, lab error, chain of custody questions. It treats caution and independent experts as credible. Official confidence becomes a red flag.
Then, a reasonable person exposed to that comes away thinking, this isn't a bad actor, it's a plumbing problem for the entire supply chain. And no recall list saves you from that.
Notice who looks responsible in each world. In the control frame, a foreign grower may be a single facility. Government looks competent. Consumers are blameless. In the systemic frame, responsibility diffuses. Growers, processors, regulators, cross-border oversight, even climate patterns. Everyone a little responsible, no one fully in charge.
which also means everyone has a reason to say, not us. Mexico denies it. The company's cleared. The agency says the test was wrong. The secretary says it's fine. Meanwhile, my group chat is asking if we should stop eating salads.
And both groups can be acting rationally. One person hears source identified and sees a solvable problem. Another sees record high and a reversed recall and hears data are noisy, proceed carefully.
It's also about what each story makes human. The control version humanizes the investigators, the people who traced supply chains overnight. The other one makes you picture field hands without toilets, runoff after a storm. A line of bagged lettuce moving faster than reality can be verified.
The first story quiets your appetite for blame. The second one rearranges your appetite, period.
How much of this is incentives? I mean, governments don't love saying, we don't know. Exporters don't love being the villain of a US summer.
Incentives shape credibility. Under control is politically useful. No link to our producers is commercially essential. Systemic sanitation failure is journalistically honest and economically disruptive.
And then there's the lab reversal. Once you clear a company publicly, you've moved the blame, right? Even if the outbreak curve keeps going up.
You've shifted the target without resolving the fear. That's a dangerous place for trust to live.
So two co-workers at the same office fridge can read the same week differently. One tosses anything labeled product of Mexico, the other swears off salads and starts Googling irrigation.
And both will feel like the other is overreacting.
Or underreacting.
The difference is the story they were handed.
Walk me through the evidence thing. What counts in each frame? Because I keep hearing source identified without a public smoking gun.
In the control frame, an epidemiological pattern plus industry cooperation can be enough to declare directionally solved. Overlapping purchase data, supply chain mapping, and an internal recall. The audience is asked to trust process, not see proof.
And the systemic frame asks, show me the lab result, the water test, the lot numbers, especially after the FDA reversed the Taylor Farms positive.
Exactly. Clarín reported the agency reviewed the lab work and called the initial positive a false one. That lands as self-correction in one narrative and you almost smeared an innocent supplier in another.
And if you're a Mexican grower reading coverage that US officials think it's your lettuce, while your own health secretary says domestic cases are just baseline, you see scapegoating.
Al Jazeera reported the scale, more than 1,400 infections in the United States. That helps us understand how large the outbreak is, but it doesn't settle where it began or who is responsible.
Meanwhile, The Guardian quotes experts saying infections will likely keep rising even as the secretary says it's under control. That's not just a disagreement, it's two clocks set to different times.
One clock is political time, control now. The other is epidemiological time, onset dates, incubation, reporting lags. A reasonable person on political time hears reassurance. On epi time, they hear premature closure.
And then the climate piece. The times linking warming to pathogen spread, that changes who seems blameworthy. It moves you from a bad factory to a warming world and water management.
And when responsibility moves that far upstream, individual choices feel small. That can make people either fatalistic or hyper-cautious. Wash more, eat differently, or disengage because the problem feels huge.
I keep thinking about credibility. In the control story, the hero is the state plus compliant companies. In the systemic story, the hero is the person who withholds certainty.
There's a cost to both. Overconfidence can erode trust when the curve rises. Relentless uncertainty can paralyze behavior and crush livelihoods, especially for exporters who may not be at fault.
And for consumers, the map is weird. Avoid one label? Avoid everything green? The advice shifts with the headline.
That's the emotional consequence of dueling frames. Your daily risk calculus becomes a media literacy test. One reader asks, which brand? The other asks, which system?
And it's not that anyone's stupid. They're just following different rules for what counts as a good explanation.
One rule says, find the narrowest cause that, if removed, restores normal. The other says, look for patterns that, if ignored, guarantee repetition.
Both can be wrong in the wrong hands. Both can be right, too.
The lab reversal is the tell for me. It shows how much we want the story to lock and how resistant reality can be.
So what do you say to the friend who heard under control and bought the salad, while you read record high and made soup?
I'd say, you're not crazy. Neither am I. We're just living with different exposures to parasites and to narratives. Let's compare notes, not motives.
And maybe ask for the evidence behind the soothing line.
Or behind the scariest one.
The punchline is, there isn't one, is there?
Not yet. Just two sensible ways to be a little wrong while you wait for the facts to catch up.